20 years ago in Osaka, Japan, a family from the infamous Taika clan, the most feared Yakuza group in the country, gathered to celebrate their young daughter's second birthday. What began as a joyous occasion quickly turned into tragedy when a rival gang launched a vicious attack, brutally killing every family member in the room. Amidst the chaos, only little Aimi, the daughter, miraculously survived the massacre. After the tragic event, she was sent to Brazil, a country with one of the largest Japanese communities, where she grew up under the care of her grandfather. Aimi lived an ordinary life, unaware of her family's dark past and the bloodshed she narrowly escaped. Her deceased grandfather had kept her in the dark about the events, choosing to raise her away from the violence. Wanting her to stay connected to her roots, her grandfather's friend, whom Aimi referred to as senpai or teacher, taught her martial arts techniques, preparing her for a future she did not yet understand. Meanwhile, back in Japan, Takashi, a high-ranking Yakuza, was making moves within his own criminal circle. At the time, he was about to execute one of his underlings for embezzling funds from the organization. The subordinate attempted to offer valuable information in exchange for his life, but Takashi, cold and merciless, chose to kill him and 3 other men associated with the crime. Following the killings, Takashi sought an audience with Oyabun, the Yakuza boss, to apologize for the chaos by offering to cut off one of his fingers as a sign of repentance. Oyabun, however, spared him from the self-mutilation, recognizing that Takashi had done enough for the organization. Yet, Kojiro, Oyabun's right-hand man, was not as forgiving. He never respected Takashi, especially since Takashi had once been associated with the now-destroyed Taika clan. Back in Brazil, a man named Ronin awoke in a hospital with no memory of his past or identity. The doctors, after extensive testing, were unable to provide any answers, leaving Ronin confused and lost. Unwilling to burden those around him, he decided to leave the hospital, though he carried with him a katana sword that had been found by the police. Ronin hoped the katana would offer clues to who he was and what had happened to him. Elsewhere, Aimi, now a young woman, was getting a tattoo of the Taika clan symbol, still unaware of its significance. Afterward, she visited a local club, where she got into a fight with a man who tried to harass her. Her skills in combat, learned from her teacher, helped her defend herself, but she was almost arrested by the police for the disturbance. Ronin, on a quest to understand the origin of his katana, visited an antique shop where he finally uncovered a lead, an address that took him straight to Aimi's house. Coincidentally, as he arrived, Aimi was being attacked by the same men who had harassed her at the club the previous night. Cornered and overwhelmed, she fought back with all her might, but it wasn't until Ronin intervened that she managed to fend off her attackers. At the same time, Takashi had arrived in Brazil, his mission clear: find Aimi. Without explanation, he began slaughtering everyone around her, forcing Aimi to flee in terror, believing that Takashi was after her. Seeking refuge, Aimi and Ronin went to her sensei's house, where they were finally given some answers. Her sensei revealed that the katana Ronin was carrying had once belonged to Aimi's grandfather. Although this revelation stirred more questions than answers, Aimi began to realize there was more to her family's past than she had ever imagined. The sensei gave Aimi a photo and an address, urging her to uncover the truth. The photograph showed Takashi with other members of a group that resembled a family, hinting at a deeper connection between Takashi and her family. Aimi, now filled with curiosity, went to the address with Ronin following in hopes of finding answers about his own past. At the address, they met an old man named Chiba, a close friend of Aimi's grandfather. Chiba explained that the katana she was holding was part of the Taika clan's lineage, a powerful symbol of their legacy. Despite Chiba's explanation, Aimi remained confused, pressing for answers about her own connection to the Taika clan. Chiba, however, was reluctant to reveal the full truth, leaving Aimi frustrated and in the dark. That night, unable to sleep, Aimi was plagued by thoughts of her recent discoveries. An elderly woman named Chio led her to a cemetery behind the house, where Aimi was shocked to find her grandfather's grave. Hidden in the tomb was a box containing an old newspaper detailing the massacre of the Taika clan. As Aimi read, flashes of memory from the tragic incident flooded her mind, piecing together fragments of her forgotten past. Just then, Takashi appeared, revealing to Aimi that he had once been a loyal member of the Taika clan and was now there to protect her from Oyabun's assassins. Meanwhile, Kojiro, driven by his own thirst for power, had begun a killing spree, targeting the elderly residents in Chiba's house. Ronin, who had been sleeping in the warehouse, awoke to find the elders who had greeted him now lying in pools of blood. Desperate and outnumbered, Aimi and Takashi fled the scene, leaving Ronin behind. Once they reached a safe house, Takashi finally told Aimi the full truth. She was the last surviving descendant of the Taika clan, her family wiped out by Oyabun's men when she was just a child. Takashi had been her father's confidant and had sworn to protect her. He revealed that Aimi's grandfather was actually a bodyguard tasked with raising her in Brazil under a new identity. The plan had been to reveal the truth when she came of age, but her guardian was killed by an assassin hired by Oyabun, the same assassin who turned out to be Ronin. Ronin, though deeply connected to her family's destruction, couldn't remember his role in it. Torn between rage and duty, Aimi chose to spare his life, but only if he agreed to serve her as she returned to Japan to reclaim her rightful place as the leader of the Taika clan. She had made up her mind, she would avenge her family. Before leaving Brazil, Aimi returned to her sensei's house to say goodbye, but she found him murdered in cold blood. Believing Ronin to be the killer, she confronted him, but he insisted he had no memory of the event. Still, Aimi's desire for revenge clouded her judgment, and she nearly killed Ronin, but his apology and plea for understanding softened her. With Ronin in tow, Aimi and Takashi headed to a rendezvous point where they were supposed to board a helicopter to Japan. However, they were betrayed by those they trusted. Oyabun's men ambushed them, and Aimi fought fiercely with her katana, determined not to die in vain. She defeated the attackers with precision, fully embracing her role as the successor of the Taika clan. But when they reached the pickup point, they were met by Kojiro and his men. In the brutal battle that followed, Takashi was killed right before Aimi's eyes. Fueled by grief and rage, Aimi challenged Kojiro to a duel, and despite being injured, she unleashed her signature move, killing Kojiro with a swift strike.